Hey, hi, and howdy, sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Courtney. I do food and kitchen content. Typically, you'll get a grocery haul from me every single week with prices and a meal plan and these what's for dinner style videos. So if you are new, I am super duper into meal prepping. Y'all, this has just made my weeknight so much easier, especially since we're back in the swing with like homeschool and co-op and all the things. This is a game changer. So this week I only did 3 meals because it was my birthday on Sunday, which is when I normally meal prep. So I kind of meal prepped most of it Monday after co-op and the rest of it Tuesday morning. But this is still a very quick and easy meal prep, and it made a ton of food. So let's kick it off with Cincinnati chili. Oh my gosh. So I am, if you don't know, I'm doing the Mediterranean diet, but I couldn't resist. I had to have one small bowl of this. Oh, this stuff is magical. It's so good. So I've got 1.5 pounds of ground beef, and I'm just kind of breaking it up, with my little meat masher tool there. And I'm cooking it about halfway through before I start adding the rest of my ingredients. Right there, I've got one small onion that I diced up. And I'm going to let that just kind of cook for a couple of minutes and start to soften, and then go ahead and add in some garlic. Now, of course, you could always just do garlic powder and onion powder if you want to. That is fine as well. I'm going to link the original recipe below for you guys so you can see exactly what the measurements are, but I'll just kind of run through what I did here. Next, okay, it sounds weird, but go with it, okay? Cocoa powder. You need 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder. You can't make it without it. It's got to have it. It brings out this deep richness that is just fantastic. Don't skip that ingredient. The recipe calls for water, but I feel like that kind of is bland, right? So I wanted to do beef broth. And of course, I don't keep beef broth on hand, so I added in my bouillon powder right there. I am a firm believer, if you're using powdered spices of any kind, you want to put them in and toast them like I am right now before we add a whole ton of liquids. So I'm going to go ahead and add in everything that I need here. That's going to be like, no salt because the bouillon has a ton of salt, but we're going to do pepper. This recipe has a really great spice blend. It's got cumin, cinnamon, allspice, cloves. It's just such a warm dish. It's fantastic. So I put all of those seasonings in, and I'm letting them toast for just a minute or two before we add any liquids in there, and it just kind of brings your dried spices back to life. Next, I'm going to stir in 1 small can of tomato paste. I like to scrape mine out and get as much of it as I can out. It does like to stick in there. I used to use the tubes, but I feel like the recipes I'm making now use a lot more, so I just went back to the cans, which are also a little bit more economical. Next, we're going to add in some chili powder. This calls for a 1/4 cup of chili powder, so I did save it for a little bit further into the recipe because it's so much chili powder. But you got to have it. Just picture it is a type of chili that we're making here, not like a Texas chili or anything like that. It's different. This is a Cincinnati chili, but you definitely want to add in a bunch of that chili powder. And I am going to let it toast for a few minutes. We'll go ahead and start adding in our liquids next. It calls for some apple cider vinegar and some Worcestershire sauce. Don't skip those. I know we've got like a ton of bold flavors going in here, but I promise you this stuff is magical. Next, I'm adding in my water, or if you're using regular beef broth, now is the time to do it. Of course, you could use vegetable or chicken broth as well, but I always feel like beef bouillon packs so much amazing flavor. It is my favorite bouillon to use just because I feel like it flavors everything so well. So I'm going to let that just simmer on the stove, and we're going to move on to the next dish so we can be cooking. We're doing 2 things at once. That's how I make my meal prep go by so quickly. All 3 of these meals, aside from like the cook time in a slow cooker, actually took me about an hour total. These are very, very easy meals this week. We're making red beans and rice, and I'm using my Ninja Foodie because we're going to do, you can slow cook it. Also, you can also pressure cook it in there, but we're going to start off by just sauteing some bell pepper, some celery, and some onion. And then I threw in some sausage. I'm using a red hot sausage just for some heat. And I'm letting that saute, and I'm popping back over to the stove while it's doing that. My chili's been simmering for a while, and I had some noodles cooking on the stove. I let them cook for about 5 or 6 minutes. They are nowhere near fully done, but I went ahead and pulled them out of the water, and I put them into the Cincinnati chili, and I'm going to let them finish cooking for about 4 minutes in there. And what that does is it soaks up that beautiful flavor into the noodles that just like elevates a pasta dish to do it that way. And it also releases starch into the chili, so that kind of helps thicken it a little more as well. So while that's simmering, I popped back over. My sausage and my bell pepper and my onion and my celery are looking really, really good. I did throw a little bit of garlic in there as well. And of course, like I said before, if you want to skip the regular garlic, you can do garlic powder. I use my confit garlic. It's my favorite. It's always linked down below. This recipe, I don't think it called for beef broth either, but I'm just going to do that over here as well because I think it adds flavor. So instead of adding plain water to cook our beans, I threw some beef bouillon in there. And I'm also going to throw in some cumin. I'm getting down to the last of my cumin, and it's really powdery, so it kind of sticks in there sometimes. And then I also threw in 1 bay leaf. And that's really all you're going to need here. I think the original recipe that I'm linking calls for a ham hock, but I didn't have one, and I really don't feel like it was necessary. So I just went ahead and added in my beans that were rinsed and sorted, and a bunch of water. I did 6 cups of water, 1 pound of beans, 1 pound of sausage. And I just let this slow cook on high for 6 hours. Of course, you could also pressure cook it. I think it's like 25 minutes on high pressure with a natural release. But this is what it looks like when it's done. This is one of my favorites just because it's super easy and it's just a little bit different than regular beans and rice. The sausage kind of, I don't know, it adds something extra to it. I've got rice going in my rice cooker and I've got my bowls laid out, so I'll put the rice in it and then I'll just put the red beans and the sausage on top. Now, it is the next day. When I made the rice in the slow cooker, I do want to say I made 3 cups of rice like before it was cooked. So it's a ton of rice and I could use it for 2 dishes because what we're making now also uses rice. We're going to make butter chicken, which is just like an Indian style curried chicken. Oh, it's so good. So I've got some chicken tenders that I threw in my slow cooker because I am heading out the door to go run some errands. So I went ahead and tossed some chicken tenders in there with half a cup of water. I threw a little bit of bouillon in there, and then I'm throwing in the spices that are listed in the recipe. Now, the recipe I used is for a stovetop method, but I've done this in the slow cooker a million times, so I'm just showing you how I do it in case you want to try it that way as well. I threw in the garam masala, the onion, the garlic powder. Like I said, I have some bouillon in there, some pepper, a little bit of cumin, just all the ingredients that were called for. I almost forgot the fenugreek. I don't always use it, but I have some, so I'm actually using it this time. If you don't have it, though, don't worry about it because, like I said, I've made this plenty of times without it. I'm only using it because I do have it. So I went ahead and got all of that in there, and I just cooked this chicken on high, and it was done in like 3.5 or 4 hours. But you can leave it low all day while you're at work, and then when you come back, it's fully cooked and ready to go. And then you can just add in the last couple of ingredients because it's really simple after this. But like I said, I've got all the seasonings and a little bit of water in there. And this is what it looks like. It's not exactly beautiful. I mean, it's just cooked chicken. So I'm going to go ahead and break it up. I love my little meat masher tool for this because when I do chicken in the slow cooker, it's so tender that this just shreds it right up. You can also use the stand mixer method or the hand mixer method where you just use your hand mixer to kind of break up the chicken. But I always just find this to be the easiest way. And I don't know if you see my little company down there on the floor. My doggy knew I was cooking chicken. Now, because I make homemade dog food and I use chicken, anytime I work with chicken, my dogs think I am making something for them. And they just kind of sit around and wait for me to feed them. Can we all say spoiled rotten? Anyway, now that the chicken is completely shredded to my liking, I'm going to go ahead and add in the rest of the ingredients. Just like the last recipe, this one also calls for 1 can of tomato paste. So I went ahead and got that right on in there. And I will be linking the original recipe down below so you can have exact measurements for this too. I really like to scrape those cans and get as much out as I can. And of course, I did spill some there as well. But my Ninja Foodi is still hot from slow cooking, so I'm going to go ahead and stir all my ingredients in here. Tomato paste is not just flavor, but it's a thickener as well. So this is going to pull double duty for us today. Now, the recipe that I have linked calls for heavy cream, I think it is, but I always use coconut cream whenever I make this. I also use it whenever I make chicken tikka masala, which is very, very similar to this. And my recommendation really is to go with coconut cream, just unsweetened coconut milk. I think it just tastes fantastic, but you don't have to. And you can also just buy coconut milk in the refrigerator section of your grocery store. It doesn't have to be the cans. I get these cans from Sam's Club and it's a good price and I use them for a lot of things. That's the only reason I have those. One other thing that you do want to add in is a little bit of brown sugar. I think it calls for like 1 or 2 tablespoons. So I threw a little bit in there. And as I mix it up, I thought, oh, not quite enough. So I threw just a tiny bit more in there. I don't think I have quite 2 tablespoons, but close. You really need that because the tomato paste and all the spices can get a little bit bitter. But here's all the meals. They are all done. They're ready to go. There is the Cincinnati chili. Now, traditionally, this is served with a huge mound of cheddar cheese on top, but you don't have to do that. My oldest son does not like cheddar cheese, so he doesn't put cheese on his, and he loves this stuff. So personal preference, right? However you think you're going to like it. But these meal prep beautifully, and they hold up wonderfully in the fridge. Here's the red beans and rice, and it made a lot of meals, as you can see. That's like a lot of food. Now, if you have a bigger family or more people that you're feeding, you could always double these recipes, and it would go even further. It would still be economical too, because I mean, when it comes to like beans and sausage and stuff, that's pretty darn cheap. And then of course the butter chicken right there, such good stuff. I love this stuff so much. And in the first one, by the way, if you wanted to use ground turkey instead of ground beef, that is perfectly acceptable and a little bit cheaper. So you could definitely like cut your costs on that one as well. Anyway, that is it for this week's recipes. I only made these 3, but it is a ton of food, especially because it's mostly just for my husband and my oldest. I'm doing the Mediterranean diet. My kids eat some of it too, but not all of it. Anyway, these are budget friendly and super simple and so delicious. You're going to love them. All the recipes are linked below. I hope you give them a try. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you soon with a new video.